Hello and welcome to another Hidden Treasures video. Today I want to show you an app we've been working on. It's still in development, very early stage. It's a little preview of an MVP, a minimum viable product as we like to call it, in case you weren't aware and haven't read the book. But yeah, it's just an early version of a tool that we've been developing kind of organically over the last couple of years. There is a Medium post along with this video which kind of gives a lot more of the background, so I'm going to just use this opportunity to give you a little walkthrough, a little demo. I'll kind of explain how we got to this through the process of the demo. So, what is Swage? Swage is filling a particular need that we have at Beach, which was when we work with startups, technology startups that often have very complex and ambitious goals to develop technology. They're also working in a world of uncertainty, and existing tools, workflow tools, project management tools, accounting tools, they just didn't quite cut it in terms of what we needed to basically provide very agile and iterative scenario creation and budgeting and planning for technology projects, which involve lots of resources at different levels and a lot of shifting sort of parameters and characteristics around projects. So typically what happens is someone, startups trying to raise a seed round or a Series A investment. At the moment, they've probably not got enough money even to do half of what they want to do, but they are, selling their company or so far as the sales process goes, to an investor. They're selling a portion of their company. They're getting the investor to buy into a plan, but that plan is far from concrete. It's highly fluid, highly dynamic, and the tools that we have available for operating in that environment, they just don't work. So we ended up creating our own solution, and again, you can read the Medium post to get more of the background on this. And this is the result of a couple of years of various iterations, of a solution to this particular problem. And we call it Swage. Swage fits within our Beach blacksmith kind of toolkit. Swage is a metalworking tool, and yeah, this is really an introduction to the app that we've been building. So we'll start here. I'm logged in. You don't need to see the login process because that's the same as with every other app. I'm logged into my account, and fundamentally I have the ability to create projects. So we'll go ahead, we'll do this right now. So we are going to do a mobile app for the intergalactic. I can't spell it. How do you spell galactic? Intergalactic Republic. Hey, they need a mobile app, of course. Chancellor Valorum will be our client. Well, of course. The project's going to run from the 1st of March to the, let's say let's do a 3-month scenario. So we're going to go, March, April, May. So 31st of the 2019. Right. So this is our project. Thank you very much. Okay. So now, before we dive into the project, we've got a couple of other sort of global elements which I'll briefly introduce. So firstly, preferences. Pretty much all of Beach's clients are outside the UK, or at least the majority are, and we have to deal with various different currencies, so we sort of made allowance for that straight away. Now, obviously, the Intergalactic Republic is going to primarily default to using US dollars. So we'll select that as our default currency. We're going to need some more resources, I think, for this mobile app. We've already got a front-end developer. Master Yoda, our HTML programmer, hey? Cue all the dev jokes. And we've got a back-end developer. I think we're going to want to add. Oops. We're going to want to add a designer. Why not? So I think that Princess Leia. Oh my word! How do you spell Leia? Leia. EIA. Leia Organa. She is a master UI UX designer, of course. We'll go middleweight or middle level. I don't like the term middleweight. Middle level. Hourly rate. She's yeah, that'll do. So let's add. So okay, we've got our team in here. We've set the currency. So let's head back to our project. So every project has two levels, right? We have scenarios and we have jobs. If you prefer, you can look at them in a list or in this kind of grid view. That's fine. So let's dive into to the project. Okay, so here's our project information. The first thing we're going to want to do is look at creating at least one scenario. The chances are we're going to create many. We'll create one for the purposes of this. So in this scenario, we need to kind of label and characterize it, because that's going to be the basis for the assumptions to which we're then going to apply resources. Okay, so first up, let's call this the light speed scenario. Okay, and that means that we are going to we've got a lot of pressure to move quickly to present the mobile app at the next Senate meeting in April. Okay, so we're going to have a big ramp up early on. We're going to want to get the project ready for an initial preview presentation at the Senate meeting, because we're going to use that as a catapult to get traction, gather feedback, and we're going to take that to our investors. We're going to raise some money for the next iterations of our mobile app. So, few other issues though is that we're restricted to 3-person team due to a trade blockade. And all right, that's enough for the Star Wars fun. So initial estimate, I don't know, let's stick this in. There's gonna be a, I don't know, finger in the air, $20,000 phase. We're gonna start now. And we are going to, we're not actually going to end with the presentation. There's going to be some period after that. So, but let's run this particular scenario up to, let's say, the end of April will suffice. Okay, so that's a period within the actual project scope itself. We're going to have both of our developers. Oh, and the assumption here, because we've got our back end who's going to do our API, our front end who's more of a webby. So I think, the other assumption in terms of technology stack around, let's go like React Native. I'm not even gonna write like PhoneGap or something like that. All right. So these are some basic assumptions. We're going to create this initial scenario. So from here, we'll dive into this scenario and open up the time logs. Okay, so we can see here again, we've got our three resources. And the first thing we want to do is generate the default time log. So this will automatically populate for each week of our scenario phase. It will apply some hours to our resources at the hourly rate. So we've already created basically a scenario. If all of these developers were going to be fully engaged, then this is broadly what the scope of this project is going to look like. I can filter this to just the developers, just the design team, and obviously bigger teams. You've got visibility over those different kind of areas and departments. Another alternative view, you can see here we're in this kind of grid view, and I can actually edit here the time allocation. So it might be that Obi-Wan, he's going to take a little ramping up, and quite possibly Princess Leia, her time is going to kind of taper off because it's going to be design heavy up front. So we can do that in here. It's very simple. The other way to do it, which is pretty neat, is that we can come into this kind of chart view, and here this is exactly the same in terms of the hour, the time assignment, but actually you can get more of a visual feel for the cadence of the project. So actually, Princess Leia, I think, will probably stay somewhere around full-time engagement for a couple of weeks, but then I think cadence-wise it's going to drop off. I think we're going to want to lay down a lot of the API foundations, and then we'll probably sort of come down to a bit of testing and fixing here. And Obi-Wan's actually not going to start initially. We'll probably get design handover somewhere here, and then it's just going to be pretty maxed out building, the app for presentation. So it's going to be a curve, something like that. We can see here, compared to our initial estimate, based on this time allocation and the rates, this is how we're comparing. So again, we might want to also say, well, actually this isn't a full-time gig for Leia, and certainly the API isn't that complicated. There's just a few endpoints needed. So we can really kind of manipulate this to suit. But we're pretty sure that Obi-Wan's going to be pretty busy. And now we're somewhere more in line with the kind of initial ballpark estimate. Okay, so we close this. We save these changes. We can see we've got our Lightspeed scenario in here. Okay, so we've done that, and we can make more of these scenarios. You see it's very, very quick to do. And once we've got a bunch of these, eventually one of these becomes reality, right? We've convinced an investor to put some money in, or the board has decided to allocate more money to this particular project, whatever the case may be. But at a certain point, we want to lock in this scenario, and it's now become an approved, not just a scenario, but an actual job. And so you can see here now that our Lightspeed scenario is now available in our jobs. Okay, so if we dive back in here, we still have the ability to add more resources, even change the date parameters and things like that. But one thing that has happened is that our estimate scenario has been locked in, right? So whatever happens in this scenario now, this is where we're monitoring our progress against that initial scenario. Okay, so again, similarly, I can come into the project, I can generate the time logs in here. But now, if I, now we're into the project's going to start. And, in the first week, in reality, Obi-Wan does 10 hours. Master Yoda starts, laying down some initial scaffold for his API. So he does 10 hours. And Leia cracks on and puts in a big shift. Okay, in the first week. So now, if we come into the chart view, you can see that we now have plots for not only the scenario, but also the actuals as well. So I can turn off the scenarios, and we can see here we've got two very similar. In fact, if I just move this on so you can see it, we've got, these are the actuals. And obviously if I then focus on Obi-Wan and bring in a scenario, we get a view of how that compares to what we allowed for in the scenario. So, in this case, we can see that the scenario is under allowed for the time that Obi-Wan was going to put in the first week. And as time goes by, we're going to get, and the actual hours get put in, we're going to see, a different curve. It's never the same, but, we can very easily and visually track the progress of a project across all of the resources, all the team members, all the work that's being done according to what we expected. And we can use this as a basis to learn, as a basis to understand and forecast ahead whether we need to, raise that a project is, distinctly different to what we originally expected, and the reasons for that, and whether we have to, come back and replan and maybe trim scope or add more resources, whatever it might be. But, without this kind of tool, this is, something that's very difficult to do, we found. So this is why we built Swage. This is just an initial version. I wanted to introduce you to the product, and we're going to continue really iterating this and getting it ready for you to give it a try yourself. So if this looks like a product that could be useful to you, I'd be really happy to hear from you. If you'd like to give it a try, we will be opening it up for external beta testers soon. So I would love to hear from you. If that's the case, please do get in touch, steve@beach.io, if this particular product that we're building has connected with you in any way. So that's all for me today, and I'll see you next time. Thanks.